that's not the greatest push press in the world. Skill transfer is a little off. No one cares about your heaving standing bench press. There is no skill transfer. It's just not going to help you. This progression is going to be almost pointless.
It's weird. This phrase of skill keeps getting thrown around quite a bit so far.
We got some pull strings getting your positions matter. Beep boop.
Do it right.
Yes. Oh my God.
Do it right. Move better. Get stronger.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into a special edition Misfit podcast. If you are a longtime listener, follower of the blog, welcome to the Phase 3 podcast. If you're a new listener, if you are peeking in from another program, this is your opportunity to get a true peek behind the curtain, the who, where, what, when, why, how of our programming. We really dig into sort of the upcoming stuff, but also really the philosophies that apply to the different categories within the sport itself. Talk a lot about the sort of 50-50 agreement that we present to athletes, where we meet you halfway. We put everything that we have into the programming and the coaching, and you supply the other 50% with your commitment, your dedication, your work ethic, all that good stuff. And I would say this podcast represents at least 25% of that agreement. We continue the agreement throughout the phase. If you listen to the podcasts, consume the content, all that good stuff, that really brings us to that point where we're trying to do everything that we can to help you succeed. And then the other part of this that's really unique for us, and makes this podcast almost just as much for us as for you guys, is we always are coaching a phase and writing 2 phases later. And this thing that we're going to talk about today, that we've poured our blood, sweat, and tears into, just magically reappears. And we get to talk about this thing that we worked really hard on, that we're really excited for you guys about, but that just disappears for a while. We write it, and then we're coaching phase 2 and writing phase 4. What happened to phase 3? So it's an opportunity for us to really dig back into everything and prep and prime for coaching it and getting after it. So, yeah, long preamble, but phase 3 is almost here.
A fan favorite too. We got the volumes. We'll probably say. Hold on.
Don't bury the lead.
Yet, but there's some really fun things in phase 3. Things that people look forward to every single season. Those of you who followed along for years, and if you're brand new to the program, phase, if you're looking for a good one to kick off on, phase 3 is a great place to start. And it's I won't say it's a punch in the mouth, but it's a very, very challenging phase.
It's not a punch in the mouth.
That's true. That is true.
What do you have to say for yourself over there? Nothing?
I was just looking back. Well, I've been digging through all 4 programs for the last week or so.
So you're already in it.
Yeah, I've been digging through, reviewing stuff, making sure it's all kind of ready for the upcoming week. But some of the nuances compared to last year, Hatchet folks are gonna get the full Monty from the old high CNS lift for the phase. Yep. So they're going to get the full phase. I think that's a good call with the, especially with the way that we're kind of doing the retest, where we get that full 7 weeks of squatting. So, not to blow the surprise, but
tell everybody.
Did you tell people what we're going to tell people in this podcast?
You tell them before we tell them.
A whole lot of sitting down and standing up this phase, but I always I feel like, even in previous years, phase 3 is almost like, I don't want to say it's not the start of anything, because it's in the middle. It's like phase 3 of 4, and then you've got your competition blocks. But it always seems like historically, the way that we've programmed phase 3 has always been, for lack of a better term, a kick in the dick. It's like, whether it's the volume back squat phase, maybe previous years of like the clean, like the complexes, like the super gnarly Misfit complexes, I feel like always fell into phase 3. And it's always like, hey, I hope if you've been following for phase 1 and 2, like buckle in. If you're jumping in for the first time, or maybe just getting started with phase 3, like, get yourself a nice foam roller.
I think the reason is that, let's say the open and quarterfinals are maybe like a delicious lasagna that's baking. You start to smell it.
Sure.
Right, for phase 3. You can start to get a whiff of like phase
of
1
bubbles when you look in the oven.
Exactly. Yeah. It's starting to bubble a little bit.
This is the lasagna, huh?
Yeah.
Lasagna phase. Got it.
I can smell the lasagna in phase 3.
Sure. I gotta go.
Yeah. We're gonna pause this podcast, find some lasagna. We'll be back.
And cut.
Yeah, there's something to each step forward that you take, when you're looking at a 28-week thing, weeks 1 through 7 are weeks 1 through 7, and then you just slowly start to get closer and closer to the thing. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today either becomes more sport specific or is positioned to help the sport specific thing coming up. And I think part of this is too much of like weaving in and out of what we're talking about. We'll just get started on what we're talking about. But one thing that is really important to us is that people recognize that this podcast is talking about Hatchet, MFT, teens, masters, the whole thing. There is honestly even some trickle down to the team Misfit programming, just in terms of concepts and where we're at in the year. So we may use a lot of these things interchangeably, and we can talk about some of the differences and nuances between the program. But for all intents and purposes, when you're listening to this, you're going to be listening to whatever program that it's going to apply. It will apply to you in some regard.
This is the point of the year too. This is like kind of like the last phase where things start to diverge a little bit, because the seasons change for depending on what age category you're in or where you're training for, like what your Super Bowl is. So, not to say that it gets so varied that you couldn't follow along and feel like you're doing the wrong program if you're on, MFT and you're training to be a master. But like, this really is the last phase of the season where everyone's kind of on the same path with, slight nuances here and there. But then in phase 4, things begin to diverge a bit because the season is going to change for you. You all have your own Super Bowl and what's important to you, and, being on the right program will prepare you for that event, and you should be prepared for, what's going in direction. So, it's fun for everyone to kind of play along. And I think it's really engaging that the entire community can kind of be centered around the same concepts and lifts and workouts, and there's some comparisons that you can make between age groups and different programs. But this really is kind of like, I wouldn't say like the last hurrah, but like the last time that everybody's kind of on the same track, and then things begin to like spider out into different directions.
And from a timeline perspective, this is going to kick off for third week in November 21st, and then it's going to take you through the new year. Once all the holidays, all that nonsense is kind of behind us, like January, the open countdown is going to slowly start to populate on your Instagram feed, and it's going to be like, where the fuck did the time go? So,
Wodapalooza to me always marks like, oh, here we fucking go again.
Yeah.
Like it's time.
Well, and I mean like the bigger competitions,
that's kind of the last
like
one.
But I mean like right now is like when they're really kind of starting to ramp up a little bit, and then Wodapalooza is kind of that, for most athletes, the last checkpoint before the season really gets underway. So
it's also kind of what I would call like it's kind of one of the last times you gotta really go into the dark and do your own thing for like this phase, and then everyone's kind of on their own path, so people can feel like they're on their own kind of game plan after this phase. But this is like the time of the year where like you still have 7 really good weeks to make a huge amount of progress ahead of kind of going into, hey, the Open's coming around, and while it doesn't hold the same significance for a lot of us that it used to, it's still kind of like the last phase where you're kind of grinding in the dark before the showcase that's coming your way is about to be there.
It might have a little bit more than at least the past 2 years with the worldwide ranking system and stuff like that. So it could, so it's certainly not the same as, qualifying for regionals or something like that, but it is, it's not unimportant.
It's one of the last, if not the last, opportunities to get a chunk of base building in.
Sure.
Yeah. We become much more sports specific in phase 4.
Yeah, the funneling's beginning to narrow a little bit more, like what you call the do.
So we're going to start with weightlifting. I love weightlifting. I love writing weightlifting. I love talking about weightlifting. I just don't do any of it because I'm broken. High CNS lift, the peaking lift, the 1 rep maxaroni is my greatest contribution to the strength and conditioning community. The back squat volume cycle. We're going to be back squatting 3 days a week, 5s and 4s and 3s. I was obsessed in my early years of coaching with coming up with what I thought was the nuance that separated a CrossFitter from a power lifter, from an Olympic lifter, finding what that sweet spot was when compared to this volume cycle or that hatch cycle, or, you know, there were all the different ones sort of floating around the community, small of all these different things. How do we build one that is perfect for CrossFitters? And there were many iterations. And one thing that's exciting this year is the final iteration in its most successful form is back for the first time in a few years, because it's not truncated anymore. It is a true 7-week program, and it got turned into a 6-week program because of test and retest in the last few years. So you get, lucky you get another opportunity to do some 5s and 4s and 3s.
How fortunate.
And that test, the test at the beginning is very much just finding out where your percentage work should be at right now. And then the unintentional test at the end, if you will, is can you continue to move for reps? You're a CrossFitter with this weight. So there are some almost personalized sessions towards the end where what you're used to being the end, if you've only followed it for the last 2 years, you now have another week in there, and it's based solely on how it's been going for you. And you really get into something that would apply much more to the CrossFit space than did all of the ridiculous amount of stars align at the end of this for you to hit a 1 rep max on a day that doesn't matter.
I think one more layer to this too is that you are coming off a phase with a skill lift was back squat. You just spent 7 weeks refining the way you do a back squat. For the love of God, don't change the way you've been squatting. You don't need to pause anymore.
You just get to bounce.
Yeah, you get to bounce. It's the only difference. And if you're like so obsessed with putting up the biggest number on the board, regardless of how it looks, you are taking that entire phase 2 of back squatting and crumpling it up and throwing it in the corner. Like, take that information. Like, this is based on a conversation I had with an athlete this morning. Getting close to the end of the phase. They're technically in week 6 right now of the programming for phase 2, and test week's coming up. And I like to have a conversation with athletes ahead of time, being like, all right, I want you to go back to week 1, and I want you to highlight the things that you think are the most important for you to retest, because I like to keep test week a lower volume week to make sure that when we go into the following phase, we're not just smoked from a week of just getting blasted. And one of the things that a lot of the athletes that came back to me, was like, I want to do the skill lift again. And I'm like, I'm positive you will PR that lift. Like, no question in my mind, you're going to PR that lift. Let's save that squatting for phase 3, because again, all that's going to change if someone really tries to go for it is their ego's going to get in the way, and they might change the way they've been squatting to squat more weight at the end of the phase. The whole point of that phase is to clean up the way you move. You're now going to take that skill and bring it into phase 3. Now, it's not to say you shouldn't retest a skill lift if that's something that's really been giving you trouble for years and years. But some of the athletes that I'm talking about are higher level competitors who are like, you know what, I'm pretty confident my squatting pattern has stayed consistent or gotten better the entire phase. Now I want you to take that and get that stronger. Take the skill you developed, and now let's make that squat that was beautiful also heavy.
Now you guys know why there's so many fucking reps in the pause back squatting.
Yeah, I think that's a really important kind of distinction, is that if you go into the 1 rep max day, and you do change for whatever reason the way that you're squatting for the arbitrary increase in weight, and that first of all you're going to be buried by week 5. Like the squat this is not one of those programs where I would tell everybody do the 1 rep max. If you're like, use a training max, use 90% of like your all-time best as that number or something like that, but have a very accurate 1 rep max for this percentage work, because if you don't, it's going to bury you within 3 or 4 weeks, and the last 2 weeks are 2 of the shittiest squatting sessions like I've ever done personally when I went through the cycle. And the other thing too is you kind of have to remember to put this in context, like where, yes, the back squat phase is intended to improve your 1 rep max back squat. Kind of. It's intended to make your legs really, really fucking strong so that can translate to the rest of the sport.
Yeah.
So if your back squat looks like a good morning, like, don't be surprised when 21-15-9 thrusters at 135 puts you in a grave come quarterfinals, because you barely squatted below parallel. You squatted a whole shitload of weight, but you didn't do it in the same manner that you would if it were a Metcon or something like that, and it doesn't translate.
To age myself quite a bit here, Rob Wolf used to say,
Who?
CrossFitter Rob Wolf. So
I don't
that
know
tells you
who
how
that is.
long ago that was before he got kicked out. That you won't experience Fran in the way intended until you have a 1,000-pound CrossFit total. And I didn't understand what that meant until I had a 1,000-pound CrossFit total. And then I went and did Fran with like actual legs. Completely different situation.
Yep.
Completely different situation. So just thinking about what that spider web of out to all these other things is, it's important in so many different realms, and we position it where we do and we move it around based on the changes in the season. But it's one of those things, it doesn't really have anything to do with your back squat. It has to do with what being essentially the strongest human being you could possibly be turns into.
I tell affiliate athletes that, like, if you're shorting either that range of motion or just, arbitrarily putting exceedingly heavy weights on the bar for that purpose, like if you want to be good at CrossFit, or within the context of affiliates, if you want to get fitter, like get fucking strong legs. And you get strong legs by squatting correctly through a full range of motion at, weights that are
Consistently.
consistent. Yeah.
Yep. We'll do our usual PSA with this. If you don't warm up well, you don't cool down, you don't take your proper recovery, you don't sleep, you just do the squats that are written in a bubble and take into consideration nothing else before or after, you're going to have a bad time, Pizza and French fry, it's not going to be that fun for you to do this. You're going to get really sore. You're going to get discouraged. It is, Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility. And honestly, even if you're good at it, I think that's one thing that gets lost. So if you're a great squatter and you can go in and move these high percentages and, sort of create the physics equation that we're looking for, it's even worse.
Oh yeah.
Like it's even more
It's the
challenging.
same
It's
concept you
going
have
to
with-
hammer your central nervous system more because of how powerful you are.
It's the same concept we say, but like not avoiding your strengths all the time when you train, because when you train a strength or you do a workout with a bunch of strengths in it, you can fucking put yourself in a grave.
Yeah.
Same goes for a back squat. That's
very true.
universal, universal between a Metcon and a lift.
True. We are into, I was going to say phase 3 of 4 but that's what the phases are also called. Phases are phases. We are in step 3 of 4 of peaking your 1 rep max squat snatch. And that means that we are going to obsess over positional work and really dial it in for 7 weeks before in phase 4 doing, snatching heavy twice a week. So the more you clean up what you're doing in this phase, and honestly, Sherb just explained what we're looking for with the skill lift in regards to the back squat. We're looking for the same thing. We want you to improve it and then test your 1 rep max and find out where that percentage work lies when we're going into phase 4. So really obsess over your positioning and it will pay. It's a skill movement. It's not, you want the crossroads of being super strong and super skilled to come together, but it is more so in the CrossFit space. If you are better at it, you will be better than somebody that's stronger than you. Speed work. This is a lie for the second phase in a row. It is push press, but only part of it is speed work. So you are going to push press twice a week. One day is the actual speed work, the typical West Side barbell style 10x3 with the post activation potentiation. You're going to throw a wall ball nice and high up in the air. But then the other day is heavy waves. Now, we've talked about this in the past, and I can't remember. Oh, it was in the remote coaches meeting. For some reason, this is the lift where people get the most upset year round every year about the percentages that we choose.
It's a stupid lift.
I'm guessing what that means is you don't know your 1 rep max.
No, it means that I'm bad at the lift. That's what it means.
Yeah.
It means that it's disproportionately low.
I'm going to throw something insane out there. Like you guys might, like it's the video where the bottle and then that crazy, you guys are going to shoot back through the wall.
Yikes.
Lower your percentage by 5% and move fast and move well.
Oh
my God, all 3 of them are dead. The whole goons, I just killed the entire goon squad with my statement. Talk about it a lot. ideal scenario. We give you guys the most ideal scenario. If you need to adjust based on yourself, that is totally fine. So when you're doing these waves, they are appropriate in terms of traditional strength and conditioning percentages and reps and whatnot. But if you don't move well, then you donate the wrong amount of energy to potentially maybe your upper body in rep 1, and then
or
rep
everybody
2.
ahead of you on the
meter,
leaderboard.
the meter is dropping a little bit faster. So if it's a set of 3, you're not using a third of your energy. For the first one, you're using 75%, and then we've got some issues there. So if you need to personalize your percentages by creating a 5% range is typically what I give athletes. Athletes, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Move well, move fast. Your body's not going to know the difference if you move well and you move fast. We're also going from strict press and bench press to the push press so that we can split jerk and push jerk really heavy later on in the season. So if I try to hit my head on the wall behind me and hit my pelvis on Hunter, sorry for the reference, that's not the greatest push press in the world. Skill transfer is a little off. No one cares about your heaving standing bench press. There is no skill transfer. It's just not going to help you. This progression is going to be almost pointless.
It's weird. This phrase of skill keeps getting thrown around quite a bit so far.
We got some pull strings getting your positions matter. Beep boop.
Do it right.
Yes. Oh my God.
Do it right. Move better. Get stronger.
He was in the matrix of phase 3 all week, so he's just he's kind of plugged in and stuck there. Your GPP lift for the phase is the clean. What does that mean? What does GPP have to do with weightlifting? Within the sport of CrossFit, you don't know whether you're going to be asked to perform a strength movement, low weight, high rep, low rep, touch and go, a complex, whatever it is. So what we do is we pick one lift per phase and we rotate them throughout the year so that you get exposed to all of these all of the time or at some point so that you don't have to guess. You also don't necessarily, you don't have to guess what you're trying to get better at. And you also get a lot of information about yourself. So you're working through the phase and you're like, okay, a random day where I'm not in the groove of it, of going heavy. How does that affect me? What information do I know from that? A day where I'm forced to go touch and go. I'm forced to do a complex. I'm forced to do high rep. They want me to do a Metcon and then try to do a 1 rep max in 30 seconds right after it or whatever it is. So you find out a lot of information about yourself and you can either take that information and say, oh, this is a weakness, I need to work on it. Or you can take that information and apply it to strategy in a competition, whatever it is. But trying to guess what's going to be programmed is something where if you feel like that's the case, if your programmer or your coach is a little too smart and thinks that they know what's coming, it's not a great sign.
Yeah, that's not the right thing to think about when you're doing this sport. The unknown and unknowable is such a, tied to the DNA of our sport. So if you try to guess ahead and you feel like you train only one way to try to guess ahead and that thing doesn't come up, caught with your pants down, you're not ready. So that's like the biggest reason why you take a high CNS lift where you get really, really strong in something. And it's like, all right, now that you're strong, can you do it when it's high rep, low rep, lots of reps fast, or at the end of a Metcon? That is the true expression of how strength is tested in our sport. Very rarely do you get this perfect scenario where there's a spotlight shining down, there's loud music, and it's just you and your barbell. That's very rare in our sport.
Yeah, and it's just another example of why obsessing over your 1 rep max in the back squat specifically, it's like this is a very rare occasion that's going to come up, but can you rep it out?
And again, that does happen at like semifinals in the games, but you got to get there first. So you better be able to be ready to do everything.
A very hot topic in August that has died down. I think it's some good band t-shirts in there. Calm down over there, right? A very warm topic that has died down since August was what is everyone's response to the CrossFit Games being so different? How are you going to program differently? Are you
overreact?
Just throwing everything in the garbage? What are we going to do? You are, as the phases go on and as we get into competition blocks and all that, going to slowly see our response to that. The nuance here is, where are you at in your journey? Are you just trying to crush the Open? Do you want to crush quarterfinals? Is it your dream to make it to semifinals? Where some of this stuff, now that Boz is going to program those, could bleed over? Is it your ultimate dream to be at the games? Do you like doing the same movements as games athletes because it makes you feel closer to the community, whatever? You're going to start to see that in non-mandatory lifts. You're going to start to see a lot of it within accessory work. We already know what works in terms of creating the fittest athletes on earth: strength, skill, energy systems, all that good stuff. We know what works there. So if that's the case, we just have to make sure that there is a wide range of exposure to different things. So the accessory work for a lot of my games athletes has been a lot of sandbags, a lot of sleds, a lot of carries, the yoke carry, handstand work, ultra high skill, some of the parallel stuff that you guys have seen come and go on the blog. So you're going to start to see more and more of that stuff on the blog. But again, what's important is you identifying where you're at in your journey and what makes the most sense for you. So the non-mandatory lifts that you're going to see, we're going to have alternating weeks of farmer's hold and deadlifts. So 1 week you're going to be doing higher rep deadlift. That bit more of like an accessory kind of feel to it. 6x10 with 2 minutes rest. And the goal is not to absolutely bury yourself in your central nervous system, but to slowly add a little bit of weight to that. So if something heavier does come up, that you're comfortable with it and you have data and feedback. Farmer's holds, find the heaviest dumbbells that you can. Hopefully you've got 100-pound dumbbells and you get to pick them up and stand there. We're going to build the supporting musculature that you would want and need in the high rep deadlift to be able to do that.
One thing I'd add to that too, if you're someone who doesn't have those 100-pound deadlifts or dumbbells, for the farmer's hold deadlifts, dumbbells.
I don't. That's me.
Yeah.
I don't have the 100-pound deadlift.
Go to Amazon.com, get yourself a set of fat grips. Just change the stimulus that you're giving your grip. So if you're someone that's like, you know what, it's not going to be quite the same, but buying $20 fat grips is significantly more accessible than maybe paying $300 for dumbbells. If you're that athlete, if you are someone who's concerned with competing at semifinals of the CrossFit Games, get yourself a fucking pair of 100-pound dumbbells. You need them. You have to have them. You need these implements that you're going to be tested on.
You can put 25-pound plates on a barbell too. And you've got 100-pound dumbbells.
Crazy.
My only response to all of that is get 100-pound dumbbells if you are a competitor, like Sherb said. Just because I know you can't overload your central nervous system and your grip and all that stuff in the same way with fat grips or just upping the skill level essentially by doing some of the dumbbell stuff. So we go back and forth with that. What's great about that is if you need one, you probably need the other. Those things go together pretty well. We have something brand spanking new to the programming in terms of it being out there for everybody and not just for remote athletes. And they're called heavy days. Heavy days are put there to do a couple of things. Number one, remind people that weightlifting is actually pretty fun. And that if you can rewire your connection to what it means to hit a 1 rep max or a heavy double or a heavy triple, there is a much better likelihood of you succeeding in competition. We have put so much emphasis on what it can do to your season by not doing well in that we, again, have taken something fun and put a lot of pressure on it. So my goal with a lot of athletes that struggle with that moment, even though they're strong or skilled, is to give them more days like that. So they realize, hey, the right playlist, the right group of friends, whatever, can completely change how much weight I'm lifting. That's information that I think people need. Also, we need the information of, like, there are a lot of different 1 rep maxes that they could test. And, you might be at a competition where they don't give you all of the announcements in advance. So CrossFit Games or even just, something like a Wadapalooza, you don't know what the lift's going to be. It could be a bench press, could be a power clean, could be an overhead squat, could be all of these different things. We want to expose you to that so that you have information. We are personalizing these by asking you to warm up to a heavy single and then decide which day you're going to choose. Do you have the programming open? You want to read what the options are just to give people an example?
For example, week 1, day 3 is a bench press heavy day. Warm up to a single between 80 and 90%. And then you basically get 3 options based on kind of how you're feeling. If you're feeling great, then it's 4x1 at like 95% plus. So real
going
heavy,
for it.
go for it. kind of it feels normal day, which is like if we're doing singles, normally we'd ask folks to be in that like 90% plus range. So it's a couple singles at 90% plus, or this feels crunchy day, which is kind of funny because we talked about it. It's like you don't need to define crunchy, but everybody just kind of intuitively
knows what it means, but I'm using it as a coaching term.
Yeah, so it's like this is like you're warming up and it's like, holy fuck, this feels like ass. Here's an option for you where you can still get the training stimulus. The percentage is a little bit lower, the volume is a little bit higher. So instead of singles, it's doubles or triples or something like that. But it gives you the opportunity to get a couple reps in without forcing yourself to creep up to that 90%, or it's like, hey, this doesn't feel good. Why don't I hit 90%? I hate myself. Kind of like the,
sure,
make weightlifting fun again slogan sort of thing.
Exactly. And what's important about this is they've done enough studies now where people obsessing over rep ranges and percentages, at the end of the day, the total volume and output is what your body reacts to. So all we're doing is we just know that 80% is 10% less than 90%, and we up the reps a little bit, and your body gets the reps times weight volume that we're looking for. It's not super complicated. So I don't want the negative association with this feels crunchy. You are going to get stronger on that day, and that day is just not the day for you when it comes to that lift. And that's why that's built in there, because you're going to get a benefit from it, even though it's not your day.
Yeah, it makes it possible for you to do the day and get the stimulus. And to me, it has a lot of the same vibe as like a speedwork squat session. Like you are going to get yourself stronger even though you're not moving maximal load, because you are moving fast and moving with purpose.
And doing 30 reps.
And doing enough volume for your body to register the same way it would if it were, 4x1 at 90 plus. So if you're struggling with the concept, think of it a lot like the percentage work we asked you to do when it's like a speed session or something like that. You are getting the amount of training stimulus to create the adaptation within your body. You just have to know yourself well enough that when you go to this day, you don't try to force the issue and do the one you're not ready for. Like, I feel like a lot of athletes, again, are going to be biased and want to always do the really fun, super heavy one, when a lot more of those days could be spent in that middle or that, I wouldn't say bottom one, but the third option, because again, that's what we're after. You're after a better stimulus, not just being able to show off that you could do, 4x1 at 300-pound bench press. That's not worth it.
Last but not least, we have alternating weeks of sled work and RDLs. Posterior chain is, obviously we talked about the farmer's holds and the deadlifts. That's going to have some carryover there to the posterior chain, and then sleds and RDLs sort of just bring it home. There are too many athletes in the sport that would either be way better at the sport or healthy more often if they took the time to focus on engaging their posterior chain, again, so that it's powerful and or healthy. So that stuff's in there. And the carryover that I just want to address, again, just this whole like games prep movements and responses to 2022 games programming. You're going to see a lot more similar type stuff within the accessory work: heavy sandbags, heavy dumbbells, carries, the yoke. Don't worry if you don't have a yoke, it's basically a barbell, so you can still have a yoke.
Tell me how, Hunter.
Load that bitch
you figured out the farmer's carry. Figure out the yoke now.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of money on our favorite products. SharpenTheAxeCo.com. We are just a few days after the STA super comfy, creamy release. If you listen to the last podcast, that's an Easter egg. This, if you're watching on YouTube, the hoodie that I am wearing right now is from that release, and our brand spanking new joggers are also in there. And I don't know what it is, but the tan ones with a black tee, I just,
Have you done the shirt and tie yet?
I have not done the shirt and tie yet. I refuse to do that.
Some bullshit. Shirt and tie, and then tie the waistband.
But the tan joggers with the framework tee XL, obviously, I'm huge. I'm huge. It's the look, it's the vibe. So if you want to make sure that you get that before your size disappears, you're going to want to go to the site now, sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code. If you want to get it on a discount once it's already gone, next week is Black Friday, and you're going to be able to potentially get that. But just like with all of our other Black Fridays, some really cool Misfit Athletics and Sharpen the Axe releases where the second they drop, they're already on sale. And that's the stuff that's going to disappear as fast as possible. So make sure you are ready. You pay attention to the Sharpen the Axe Instagram, and you head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use your favorite athlete
Remix.
code.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co. If you are a podcast listener, every week we talk about use the code word Misfit, save a little bit of green on your order. There are plenty of people who don't listen to the podcast who are like, hey, how do I get a little discount on Proper Fuel? Heard you guys got awesome products, but I'm not willing to pay full price. Well, guess what? Black Friday is here and is the best time to check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. Site-wide, everything's 25% off, including a little extra discount on those single serves. So if you're looking for a hydration supplement, a pre-workout, or a post-workout, head to properfuel.co. Check it out on Black Friday for some great deals.
And lastly, we are brought to you by Misfit Athletics and Team Misfit affiliate programming. If you're looking for a Black Friday deal from Misfit Athletics, look no further. It is 4x4 back squat at 77.5%. If you want to get on the phase 3 program with all the other Misfits, remember, you can see the entire week of programming in advance, something that separates us from everybody else so that you can actually plug and play, make sure you're choosing your weaknesses based on movement, stimuli, your time available, whatever it is that you, however you're prioritizing your training. You can head to misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace and get a free 2-week trial of those programs. And then the same thing with our affiliate programming, teammisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace, free 2-week trial there to check out those programs and see why gyms literally around the world are following our affiliate programming, and then our individual athletes are as successful as they are at the highest levels of competition. All right, back to the show.
I'm going to pass it over to Hunter for our in-WOD lifting. For anybody that does not know what that means, we personalize some weightlifting for you inside of intervals so that you can work on something that is community-wide, sort of polarizing just where you're at within the spectrum of a specific lift if it's heavy within a Metcon. So it's hard to program appropriate workouts for everybody if we're going to ask you to go real heavy. So
I think the connection you all can draw is consider, a previous open workout where I don't remember what year it was, but the 50 double unders, a bunch of toes to bar, and then squat cleans where the barbell got incrementally heavier. We've had workouts with a snatch that's similar, and typically because it's the open, because it's a test, those weights are fixed, right? They're not going to tell you to do percentage based. They're not going to tell you to take 60% of your personal 1 rep max and do the open workout.
Boy, that'd be nice.
That would be great.
It's only 100 pounds.
No, that would be bad.
Instead, those fixed weights exist, but because that's a test, then, the odds that you get stuck somewhere are pretty high. That's the intention of the test. With the in-WOD lifting, we do, in this specific phase's instance, the shoulder to overhead's the in-WOD lift, and I kind of took a similar approach as far as choosing a fixed weight that I think everybody at the MFT level, for example, can and should be able to perform in the volume that we're asking. But then in subsequent weeks, we do get into a more percentage-based style because this is training. We're not looking to put workouts, out there from a training perspective that you physically are not capable of doing. So that's kind of the rationale behind the in-WOD lifting. But so it's like we said, it's the shoulder to overhead, and that's intended to be a push jerk for the sake of the listener here. But it says shoulder to overhead in those first 2 weeks, first couple weeks. But the weights there should indicate that it's like, hey, we're cycling this as a push jerk. And basically we just go from kind of higher volume, lower intensity, as in lower percentages, and then start to kind of reverse that. So the percentages go up, the reps go down a little bit, even a couple instances where you can take the bar out of a rack or or off of blocks, just so you're not hindered by the fact that maybe your shoulder to overhead is disproportionately higher than your ability to get it up onto your shoulders. But basically we start a little bit lower than that test week weight and then gradually build up beyond that with the hopes that once we kind of come back around to that retest, that you have surpassed that weight. You've started to get comfortable moving kind of that push jerk, cycling it at weights that are heavier than you might normally see in a competition, or probably more so in like like the open and quarterfinals, and that you're comfortable, ready to go when that random 185 pound shoulder to overhead makes its way into a quarterfinals or semifinals or something like that. It's definitely one of those lifts where that's a make or break lift for a lot of athletes, especially if you don't do it well.
It's our job to make sure those don't exist. There should not be make or break lifts. This should be a fitness test. And I joked in the phase guide that you guys will be able to download that the push jerk is the lost son of competitive CrossFit. Yeah. It's still there. It's still very much a possibility. I liken it sometimes to take a couple years off the overhead squat. People stop overhead squatting, and then boom, there it is last year. So same with the bench press, but like same concept of we don't want there to be any holes here. And guess what? If it doesn't come up, you are going to get better at handstand push-ups as a result of it. Your fitness level is going to go up. Like everyone knows what happens. It's very similar to like if you were forced to go touch and go in a deadlift, you're kind of forced to go touch and go with your push jerks because otherwise you're going to put the damn thing down and pick it back up. And you feel great and you're slinging that barbell, and then you put it down and all of a sudden your heart rate somehow jumps 40 beats. And you're like, how did that just happen? So you're going to get fit no matter what by doing this. And if it comes up, then you've got a full leg up on your competition. All right, Sherb. Metcon test and skill bias. Nope. Interval test and skill bias. The wall ball. Tell the people about their wall balls.
So I got this delightful objective from Drew, who has now written the volume squat cycle. And he goes, hey, we've got a lot of squats in the phase. And we also got wall balls in the phase. Make people better at wall balls.
Not just wall balls, bias the wall ball.
Yeah, make sure the wall ball is the feature and get people better at wall balls. But hey, don't forget, they're squatting 12,000 pounds every single week, every 10 seconds. So one of the objectives here is how do you get someone better at wall balls when you have to be cautious of the volume? You know, typically when we test wall balls, like in our sport, you see somewhere between 100 and maybe 225 reps. That's a pretty big range. And how do we create adaptation with these athletes? So one of our favorite ways to get an athlete better at a movement is to give you a deft dose of volume so you can kind of figure out where you are and then go, all right, what's the best strategy to help you bridge the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be? And early on, that's going to be more sets with lower reps per set. And as you go through the phase, you're going to see those sets begin to drop and the reps to begin to increase so that we bridge the gap between where you were when you started and where you want to finish. So one of the ways that I've found to be most effective in improving wall ball capacity, again, goes for someone who's terrible at wall balls, someone who's moderate at wall balls, or someone who's awesome at wall balls, is you give them a volume of wall balls they have to accomplish. And it's on them to decide how quickly they can go again. But there's one caveat there is that it only counts if it's an unbroken set. So if you have someone who's a little bit newer, they can start to build their athlete IQ. Like, you know what? I know I can do 20 wall balls on the minute for, let's just say arbitrarily, 7 minutes. That's great. That's maybe more like the beginner version of this. Then you have someone who's like, you know what? That was kind of easy. I probably stood around more than I needed to. Let me try to go every 45 seconds or every 30 seconds. Or you have that absolute monster, you know, those people that can do Karen Unbroken. It's like, basically, I don't want that ball to take a second bounce on the ground. You throw your 20th one, it hits the ground. Right before it settles, you pick it right back up again and you go. So
that's a no rep.
Yeah, sorry, Hunter. The idea here, again, is how do we create that intensity in something without having an astronomical amount of volume? And one of my favorite ways to do that is to force athletes to break up sets in a very particular way with the impetus of like, hey, rest as little as needed, but know that, you know, that timer in your head should be ticking down. Every time you put the wall ball down, that someone's catching up, or you can go faster, So it's both athlete IQ, like confidence building, but it's also a really good way to make sure that the intensity is very high so you can get a good dose of volume, a good amount of wall balls in, but at a volume that's not going to just absolutely make it impossible for you to continue to do your, you know, squat cycle.
Wall balls are one of those movements that you absolutely have to know kind of your your all-day set, the number of reps that you can hit no matter how shitty you feel, no matter what the workout is. It's like I can always do 15 wall balls, for example. My heart rate's in my throat, my arms want to fall off, my legs are shaking. I can still do 15 wall balls because at the end of the day, there are a lot of open and quarterfinal workouts where, like, we talked about this, I think, or Dave of all people, we talked about this, and it was
Hunter's roommate.
Shout out.
Muscle up, the open workout, muscle ups, double unders, and wall balls.
Yeah,
muscle up, wall ball,
blocked
double
that from
under.
my mind forever.
Yeah, and well,
It's the best
it's
open
like,
workout ever. You don't have to be
it was a great
fit.
open workout. But it's like you get to the end of the workout, and you're racing next to somebody. Whoever picks up the wall ball first wins, because you can only do the wall ball so fast. And if you're going to hold on to the ball for the last minute of the workout, last 30 reps of the workout, whatever it is, if you pick it up before your competitor, you win. So you have to know that all day set, I am capable of carrying unbroken, for example, or like what does this set of wall balls do to me? Because it's such a fixed movement. You can only go so fast with the wall ball. You have to know what that looks like for you.
It's on like the most wanted list of movements people fucking hate. You got like assault bike, you got burpees, you got wall balls. There's a handful of movements people really fucking just hate. And some of them are like really simple. And you're like, but if I asked you to do like 30 95-pound front squats in the front of a Metcon, you're like, yeah, fuck, no problem, easy. Go do 30 wall balls. No way. That's impossible.
You
How
get
could
me
you do
fired
that?
up.
Yeah, how could you do that? That's impossible. And it's like you have taught yourself, or you've basically tricked yourself into thinking this movement is much harder than it is. And when you quickly realize you're doing like a 20 or a 14-pound air like front squat, and you're gonna throw a ball a little bit up in the air, like your legs do much harder things. Your mind does much harder things. But when you have that initial like fear or like this I don't know, like go into it with like an agenda, like fuck that wall ball. It's like you're setting yourself up negatively, which is going to impact your ability to get the most from this session. So instead of going into it with a mindset of like, fuck wall balls, I hate them, I'll never get better at them. It's like, go into the mindset of like, I'm going to attack these and figure out how fast I can get these done and do them well. And next thing you know, it just becomes another movement where you're like, you know what? I don't give a shit how many wall balls there are. It's like a rest for me. I breathe, I move, I breathe, I move. And you were kind of, talking about a really important thing there. It's like the movement's got like one cadence. And when a movement has a specific cadence that you can't go really much faster or slower, it's actually a great time for you to potentially settle your heart rate, or, stay within yourself and not have that, I'm freaking out, man. Like you can actually get into a workout and you like be like almost like meditating as you throw the ball every single rep. And, people come at me because, oh, you like them because you're tall. And it's like, I mean, that helps. But realistically, it's setting your mindset ahead of time to be like, you know what? It's a 20-pound or a 14-pound squat that I'm going to do for a handful of times. And the more I do that, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, it's one of those coaching like pet peeve movements. Yeah. It happens more often and is more understandable with a thruster. Okay, all of my energy systems are just nailed down. I'm a beast. Love push press, love squats. Don't you ask me to do thrusters. And like part of it is likened to, okay, every time you get on the assault bike, you don't have to be at 1600 or 200 watts. There's like a spectrum in between. You don't have to do wall balls completely unbroken compared to somebody else. You don't have to do all of your thrusters where like the energy that you're putting into it could move a 135 barbell, but you've got 75 on your shoulders. A lot of nuance to this. And when we break it down to the boring cousin of the thruster, where you're literally resting for half of the movement, nothing is happening, I think there's something to that. I think CrossFitters would rather be in constant pain than kind of bored and like slightly in pain and not be able to like, I can't just crush this and move on. You're just stuck there doing that thing.
Purgatory.
You are a victim of the movement. And
yeah.
So 30 of these, it's going to take a minute, whether you do it in one set or two sets.
I'm stuck here. Be like if there's one speed on the rower.
Yeah.
It's the only speed that you can go at. So yeah, I think this phase is just as much about desensitizing you to the wall ball as it is, taking this big, bad, scary movement that's actually pretty easy and making it way better for you. Hunter.
Yeah.
Bar pole gymnastics. What does that even mean?
This so bar pull when in Misfit Athletics terms is your pull-up bar pulling movements. Chin over bar, chest to bar. I guess we consider toes to bar pull-ish, kind of. Hold on to it. Bar muscle up movements. But in this instance, we're talking specifically about chest to bar and bar muscle ups. And what's cool about the test, cool, is that the volume
cool.
is extraordinarily manageable. The problem is you have to do it in a very, very small amount of time. So the total volume in the test is only 48 chest to bar pull-ups.
A mere 48.
42? Oh no, 42. Sorry. 42 chest to bar pull-ups and 30 bar muscle ups. The problem again is that
It's short.
it's very short, which means that those reps come at you quick. And that's one way that we can test capacity in certain movements. We can obviously just say, hey, 100 chest to bar pull-ups and 50 bar muscle ups for time, figure it out. That would be okay. That's okay. There's a gymnastics capacity test, but more likely it's going to be like, hey, you have a very small window of time to do this work, which forces your capacity in a different way. So the way that the test, again, very short with a relatively low volume of those two movements, but and then what I did was basically we have the same kind of, week 2 it'll be in skill, chest to bar pull-ups and bar muscle ups. Week 3 you'll see chest to bar pull-ups and bar muscle ups in a Metcon, and it'll be actually pretty easy to identify because I structured the skill piece. So for example, week 2 has sets of 10 chest to bar pull-ups and sets of 6 bar muscle ups in unbroken sets. The next week in the Metcon, you will see a Metcon with sets of 10 chest to bar pull-ups and sets of 6 bar muscle ups. Now, obviously...
Wait, so you should be able to do it right in a bubble and then test it under fatigue?
Oh, what's up? Yes.
Another way around, right?
Yes.
Oh, shit, this is bad. I better take that out.
Now, that's not to say that obviously those movements need to be unbroken in the same way that I'm going to ask you to do that in the skill work. That is kind of the feature of the skill work. It's do an unbroken set of chest to bar pull-ups, rest as little as you need before you do an unbroken set of bar muscle ups, with the kind of the compounding effect of your pulling muscles getting fatigued being the focus there. But then learning about, like, okay, it takes me this long to do this number of reps, and then maybe more importantly, it takes me X amount of time to recover before I'm capable of doing, my next set of bar pull gymnastics. And that information, I think, is way more valuable, especially when it comes into, Metcons. We're not going to see a skill workout as a test for the open or quarterfinals. So basically very similar idea. We go from very, manageable intensity with kind of increased volume, and then we reverse it. The volume goes up, I guess, but the volume goes down, but the intensity goes up. So we're asking for bigger sets of the movement, but fewer of them. So, and that's kind of how it progresses throughout the course of the phase.
Yeah, that's one nuance to how we get people better at skill that can sound confusing. There's 2 iterations of what is the volume. There is the total volume, reps times sets, and then there's the volume of the set itself. So what Sherb was talking about before is you will do more total wall balls, but in really manageable chunks. That sets the foundation for the movement. And then as we go into higher volume sets, the total is actually less because we get so much of a great stimulus from you doing a bigger set. So that's sort of the tried and true way. If you were trying to get better at a skill, we start with a lot of reps, but in really manageable sets. We trend towards less total reps, but test your capacity within the movement itself. Ted, this could be like a clip it moment. I got one coming for you. So the stimulus and notes that you have each time you do a conditioning piece at misfitathletics.com. It's going to tell you what the pacing and what the stimulus is. And to give background on what they all are and where we're at in the season and where we're headed, I think is the easiest way to explain what all of this means. So phase 1, we bias muscular overload. We want you to run into a point within a Metcon or an interval where the amount of reps or the amount of interference between movements is so great that you can't keep going. You get stuck because your muscles aren't working. We then transition into a split between that and gas overload. We want to make the metabolic demand so high within different moments of a workout in a gas stimulus that you are forced to stop and break it up. The gas stimulus is the bias within phase 3, the phase that you are about to do. Phase 4 is the cardio stimulus. Now, there's sort of two definitions to this. One, when we are writing training versus testing, we want to make basically everybody that follows MFT or Hatchet or Masters or Teens be able to turn this workout into a cardio stimulus when we actually say it's that stimulus. It's the type of workout where it's more about transitions and how much energy expenditure you have from movement to movement, but it's the merry-go-round. I do this movement, then I do this one. They're all unbroken. They're all pretty smooth. That is the cardio stimulus. Now, what's really cool about that stimulus is the best athletes in the world can turn what is a muscle overload or a gas stimulus for almost everyone into cardio. They've become so good at all these different skills and energy systems. Their strength is there. And when you watch them do it, they can move through it as if it's your run-of-the-mill open workout, 20-minute AMRAP triplet, double unders unbroken, I row, I do toes to bar, whatever. All this stuff is unbroken, and it's just about how many sort of rounds and reps we can get in. With this gas stimulus in phase 3, there is the responsibility gets put onto the athlete a little bit. It really does. You could back off. You could back off really far and turn a gas stimulus into, like, I broke this up into an insane amount of different sets party where I've kept my heart rate pretty low, and it is what it is. You're not going to get very much out of it if you don't step up to the plate and bring gas stimulus energy to a gas stimulus workout. I want you guys to take some chances in this phase, more than you would at any other time in the entire year. I want you to go in and I want you to hunt for your threshold. I want you to find it. I want you to know how far is too far when it comes to combinations of movements, time domains, all of that, how many reps are in there. It is so important for you to know this information about yourself that we are asking for it once a day for an entire phase. If you do this, you will execute in phase 4 on the cardio stimulus much more sports specific in a way that could completely change your CrossFit career. But if we don't go hunting for that threshold in the gas stimulus, the way that people are more comfortable with doing in things like bitch work, it's not going to translate, and you're going to wonder once again why the fitness that you know that you have created is not on display when you're in competition.
The gas stimulus, I think, it's just about finding really that, and the muscle overload it's just about finding your upper limit on movements. And that's what you're trying to do in training, so that when it comes time to test, you can make informed strategic decisions that don't put you too far behind the 8 ball too early in a workout. You have to be able to, there are going to be workouts. And I think a lot of, like, that's what's cool about tests, that they're written without, it's like, the fittest people are going to do the best in this test. There aren't many ways to game certain tests. And I think that the gas stimulus, like, enables athletes to find those upper end thresholds, learn about them, and then turn around and take that and apply it, like you said, to kind of those cardio. I think the cardio stimulus is basically just like, we're not going to force you to that threshold by any one specific movement or muscle, like, kind of muscle group. You're going to find it by going as fast as you choose to go, and then having to back off.
It's a huge fucking trick, but we'll save that for the phase 4 podcast.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add, if you are struggling with this concept, go back and listen to the podcast episode about test and retest. We talk a lot more at length about this topic, and, like, why you need to understand that when you are training, you need to be pushing yourself to the point where you're not sure that what you're doing is the right thing, because how else will you learn? When you get a chance to test, that's when you get to use all that information you gain from training and then apply it. So again, if you aren't quite following along what we're saying right now, go back and listen to that episode. It's episode 242. Thank you, Ted. Go watch that one or listen to that one, and you'll learn a lot more about this concept and understand why it's so important if you're looking to be the fittest version of yourself.
And we watched some really, really incredible, fit, dedicated athletes go threshold hunting in competition. doesn't work out that well, or you're the person who's on all kinds of different sides of the leaderboard. You're in this position and then you're in that position, you bounce all around. This isn't the type of thing where we're being like, murder yourself every single day when you go into it. It's, you got to know where this thing is at. And you, a lot of times, will find out in round 2 of a workout and then kind of get back to business as you normally would. You're like, all right, you know what? I'm holding a 139 today and sounds kind of risky. And then you either crush the whole workout and go, wow, I have sort of that new place that I need to be, or 144 it is, round 3 sounds good. So it's not, it's not to say that you need to go in and just try to die in every single workout, because that's not going to work for you either. But finding your threshold is something that needs to happen. You need to make an attempt to do that daily, and it'll become more natural. You'll get more data, and then you'll compete a lot better. All right. Bitch work, also known as monostructural. We, in the anaerobic sort of short to medium time domain place, are going to be biasing the ski erg. If you followed phase 2, you just spent way too much time on the ski erg. You got your maffetone sessions and you got your aerobic sessions, and you, well, depending on when this podcast goes, got to take that lovely test for another spin with a little bit more information. What that does on a mental aspect is it really tells you how tough you can be. You get when you do a lot of the longer stuff, you get really desensitized to the shorter stuff, even though it hurts a lot more. So you're just like, 1 more minute, 1 minute. I'm usually staring at that thing like, there's no fucking way I got 39 minutes left of doing this over and over. So it desensitizes you in that way. And then it does some really magical things on a physiological level. You are working through the exact movement pattern and developing the musculature and telling your body that you know how to flush waste and get rid of it and deliver blood flow to the right areas and spend the time going slow to create slow twitch fibers, that when you go hard, your power output is now backed up by something where it's like, okay, I got this backup system that's making sure that I don't crash and burn within this. So it's worth it for us to almost every single phase go from aerobic to anaerobic to prove to you guys how this works and to show you can demand more of yourself within this movement if you do dedicate the time to your, again, maffetone sessions or your, 20 to 30 minute time domain pieces.
The analogy in my head is like building a car. Like the aerobic bias is like building the fuel tank and all the systems that you need to make sure that the engine can perform its best. And then you go to the anaerobic bias following it. It's like, all right, let's fine tune that engine. So all that machinery that we had to support the engine is now there. Now let's dial that in and make sure that engine is performing at the highest output possible. So you're kind of like, maybe working on 2 ends of a car, so to speak here, but like you're just making sure that all that work can now be translated into the application where it's more likely to be tested. It would be great if you get to go to competition and do a maffetone session. It ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be let's go. Yeah, let's get the highest wattage. It's gonna be who can go there and put themselves in a grave and then
just
repeat.
Slaps you when your heart rate gets too high. Just like
this is competition right for yourself. This is how Hunter wants all his athletes to come up to town.
Hunter wants to be the head judge. Hunter wants to be the head judge and curate the people that are in the Surprise, surprise! It's the cube test. I will not get on my pedestal about what your score should look like until year 2 of this, where you have data and you've gone through.
Just so you know, though.
It's I'm building my case. I'm building my case. And just a reminder, if you're listening and this is retest week, you're not supposed to get faster in the cube test round around. Okay. Aerobic bias. Rowing season is a coming. Okay. We have a bunch of very serious mandatory online competitions. CrossFit HQ is only going to make you row. So we've done all this work on the bike erg and the ski erg and all kinds of different contraptions you've got in your gym. And guess what? You get to row. That's it. It's the only thing you get to do. Luckily, there is a lot of transfer in terms of this stuff. But it's time to log the hours like we just did with the ski erg on the rower. And then we will do the cube test for the rower in phase 4, and we'll go harder, and that will lead us into crushing the rower when it comes to the open and quarterfinals.
Sure, I'm gonna do his 8th fucking rowing cube test.
Yes.
Rowing cube test is easy, guys. Just go really hard at the beginning, go hard in the middle, go hard at the end.
400 cals. Who's got 400 on the ski erg? Oof, that would hurt so
I don't know, is
bad.
Ryan healthy? Ryan McKay healthy? He might give it a stab.
That would hurt so bad. He was in the 90s for all of them, right? Because he compared his ski to your
My
row, which isn't fair to him.
Not
But
the same machine, but
yeah,
nice of you to compare.
that's fine. Another way to age ourselves and to make fun of Hunter's pop culture references.
What pop culture?
He's
references?
never seen the movie Speed with.
How do you know?
You told me.
Yeah,
I asked.
you did say that. He asked if you recognized this.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know what this is.
I don't remember the. I was just accusing you of assuming that I've never seen this movie before.
All right. So there's this movie with Keanu Reeves and Dennis Hopper is
yeah,
and Sandra Bullock.
yeah, that.
Do you know who any of these people are other than Keanu? You know who Keanu
Well, no, I know. I know
Okay.
who the actors are.
Sure. All right.
Definitely.
Is it like Princess Bride? Would you know that one?
So he puts a.
I think I've seen it a long time ago.
No, we're too
Sorry,
far into
no,
this
I guess. Keep going.
podcast to talk about Princess Bride. He puts a bomb in a bus and says that if the speedometer drops below 50 miles per hour, it's going to blow up. So they're on the phone with him trying to they're negotiating and it's whatever. So this workout, the aerobic row test, is called Keanu Heaves. Nice little throwback to when we dominated the naming conventions in
Well, we still
CrossFit
do, since
workouts.
nobody has.
No, they would
overtaken
literally
us.
just call it Keanu Reeves. That's not funny. That's a guy's name. Shots
not funny.
Shots fired if you're listening and you write those ridiculous, terrible names, trying to copy us but doing a terrible job at it. Until failure, row for distance at a 155/210
Fuck.
per 500 meter
500, get it?
pace or
500 meters?
faster.
All right.
How long can you row, Sherb, at a 155 or faster?
15,000 meters.
Okay, yeah. Spoiler alert, there's a 15K cap on this workout. So
Just talking shit right now. It's
We
my ego talking. I don't know
think-
if that's actually real.
we
Why,
think
Coach? Why?
every single person that follows MFT should be able to do over 10K at a 155 or faster. We think that a lot of people are going to realize how much further 15K is than 10K when they try to tackle this. And then there are a handful of people, depending on fitness level, size, whatever, that think that's funny, that are like, I do my math at that, so this doesn't make any sense. You are doing a 15K for time. That is what it is. So this is different from MFT to Hatchet to Masters to Teens. We talked a lot about what made the most sense here, what we think sort of is that baseline level for the 10K, and then again, capping it at the 15K.
You want to give the people a little context as to how you came to those, at least the MFT numbers?
Yeah, so the MFT numbers are based on the half marathon and marathon rows, throwing away outliers. Okay, because those outliers could again be from
Jason Galipa rowing a 152.
yeah, Jason.
After a 622K.
Jason, I mean, the funny thing is,
You're listening, Jason. DM me.
the funny thing is,
Say to him?
they
I don't know.
fucking
Congratulate him.
I want to hear you going to say to him.
the splits weren't that much different. So it wasn't that hard to, with that information. Obviously, a progression in the sport just sort of allows, if you're going to settle in at that pace, it's probably kind of indefinite. It's kind of the same sort of vibe, half marathon to marathon, which is insane to say. So that's where those came from. That's not like we think that because the men's is a 155, the women should be a 210. It is based on actual scores from the CrossFit Games and factoring in that we want you to land between 10 and 15K. I really want people to know what it's like to try on a rower for an hour. We've convinced you to get on a rower for an hour and be at that conversational pace, a little bit faster with all the math stuff. Now it's time to say, okay, just a slight bump, just a bump. We want you to try for that period of time. What does that feel like? And it will be very much a new experience for you on the front end. And I think it will provide a lot of context for math, for the aerobic sessions, all of that, and you'll be a lot better for it when you come out the other side and do the retest.
Talking to probably more of the Hatchet athletes specifically, I think that if you're somebody who's one, if you're just a big athlete or if you just are exceptionally good on the rower, I would toggle between hatchet and MFT and check out the differences in pace, and pick the right one, basically. Pick the one that's appropriate for you. If you're MFT athlete following the MFT program, then I don't care if you're 5'4", like you should, like if you're following that MFT program, have competitive aspirations, you got I think that's a pretty reasonable ask of athletes. But I think for hatchet athletes, maybe you are exceptional on the machine, whether it's due to your size or background or whatever it is. I think it's reasonable to maybe toggle between the two and see which one's appropriate for you for the purpose of test and retest.
Very true. As always, we have the non-mandatory power output test. We have shifted the time domain and the focus very much so of our anaerobic work to be more in that middle-ish time domain, something that is much more relevant within CrossFit. And we have said, if you struggle with pinning the bike, super short sprint on the rower, whatever, then you have your own test off to the side where we're going to test how fast you can go in a very short window, and then work within that window and expand out and expand out and expand out over the course of the phase, and then come back and, once again, hopefully we've desensitized you to the sprint a little bit and obviously made some sort of physical adaptation so that you can come back out on the other side and do that.
I actually had an interesting conversation about this with an athlete that I work with remotely, and it was like, all right, how hard do I need to go on the power output test? Like, what number am I looking for? And I said, not quite what I'm after here. I want you to see yourself get better versus yourself across all of these weeks, across the entire season. If you're someone who's looking to compare machines with somebody else and their power output, just realize that's just kind of a, comparison, the thief of joy. Like, you're not really getting the point of it. The idea
it's a
here
fucking
is
parlor trick.
Yeah,
like
power output test is an energy system test. It's not a compare yourself to somebody else. No. It's a relative power output.
Yeah, and that's the important part here is that, like, yes, at certain points of the season, you do need to compare yourself against other people, but this specifically is about developing that energy system, which is the only reason why it exists. It's not, again, like you say,
it's almost like comparing maths.
Yeah, exactly. It's saying that's sort of where I was going with this.
Yeah.
It's like, it's nice to know where you are relative to other people, but you don't know what machine they use, what time of day it was, if this is something they're really good at,
how much do they weigh? Yeah, exactly.
Again, going back to using your online training partners, because I know a lot of people like to dig into that and are like, all right, how high did you get your watts, or how high did you get this? It's like, that's great and all. It's fine to ask someone that, but just realize that specifically is very much like your math. It's very personal, and all you're looking to do across the entire season is see those numbers creep up, as opposed to like where you are relative to the field.
My lowest fitness level of almost my entire life was when I could pin the bike whenever I wanted. I'm just going to throw that out there. It wasn't that great.
Not that cool.
Not that cool. I like to touch on, at the end of these podcasts, on personalizing and thinking about how can you make the program work for you. And we've talked a lot about in the past how Misfit Athletics is based on this concept of personalizing. Is it possible to bring a community of like-minded individuals together to train really hard and train in a similar fashion and be on a program that fits your needs? Those concepts seem to be at odds. And we have worked for the last decade plus to try to make sure that that's not actually the case. So when we go in and we write a phase, essentially what's happening is we are writing what we think everybody needs to be able to do. And then we are writing all of the rest of the stuff, the non-mandatory stuff around it, as if almost any remote coach could come in and plug and play without too much skill, which in this instance is you as the athlete. You become your own coach in that part, but you take the guesswork out of it. I need to work on this. I need to work on this. That's why you'll see days where we rarely ask a lot of athletes in the off season to do 3 conditioning pieces a day, especially if we're saying 5 days a week. Like it might be appropriate on a certain day. We drop off a strength that's mandatory for other people. We drop off a skill, whatever it is. So then why on a day where you have a mandatory Metcon and a mandatory bitch work piece, is there also a non-mandatory interval written in there? It's because there are so many of you out there with so many different needs, and you might just need to drop off, this is my wheelhouse. easier to notice on the bitch work side. That's the machine I like. That's my time domain. I know everyone else is doing it. I don't need to do it. Here it is in this place. So when you're looking at the programming and you're trying to personalize for yourself, we're expanding this further and further as we go. You're going to notice there are 2 lifts every single day. There are multiple accessory pieces that could even be construed as a 3rd lift on every single day. And that provides the opportunity for you to join a community of people all trying to have that same goal as you. So you're part of something bigger than yourself. But also, this program is for me because I can go in and pull these pieces out. I don't have to guess. I don't have to write my own workouts. I don't have to write my own strength progressions. I don't have to do any of that. I show up and I realize, you know what? I know this is mandatory and that's not mandatory, but I don't need that. I need this. And that is at this point in the season, as we get closer and closer to sports specific, how you personalize. I know that's very general and generic, but trust me, if you've never looked at our programming, you're going to see it when you open it on that first day. You're going to understand what I'm talking about.
Another way I can help an athlete do this a little bit further too is that you can look at the week in advance. Those of you who subscribe, and you can see how many pieces, how many lifts are mandatory, how many metcons are mandatory, how many intervals are mandatory, and for each category, and then figure out like, all right, there are this many mandatory pieces in each one of those categories. There's this many optional pieces in those categories. And I know me as an athlete, how many volume pieces per like day or week I can do and still give good intensity to. And then you can start to pluck things out and just look at there. Like, you know, one of the questions we got recently is someone who's got pretty high level strength numbers. And they're like, how far in that direction can I personalize to the point where I'm maybe not doing that many lifts? And this is a person, you know, case by case basis here, but you can look at that entire volume and go like, all right, like, if there were 7 mandatory lifts and 5 mandatory conditioning pieces, and I know I need to bias conditioning, maybe now it's 7 mandatory conditioning pieces and 5 mandatory lifts based on what I need as an athlete. So, you know, looking at that week in advance and kind of figuring out the categories of how everything kind of falls in line is a really easy way for you to start self-coaching yourself to the appropriate amount of volume and intensity that gives you the adaptation that allows you to get better at this stuff versus just kind of following along because we decided arbitrarily, like on day 1 each week, we're going to do 2 mandatory lifts, 1 metcon, 1 math, and skill. Like you might not, that might not be the best case for you. Go further than that. Like dissect this stuff out. And if you're an athlete that likes to like plug and play, like literally print off every single piece, cut them out in little squares and like put them under different days of the week and figure out which, you know, combination of days and pieces makes the most sense to create the most adaptation for you.
Any specific thoughts that haven't been addressed already in terms of teens, masters, hatchet?
The teens program, you know, this is, again, sort of we talked about earlier in the podcast, like the last real phase where everyone's kind of on the same trajectory before things spiderweb out into their own different tracks. You know, the teenage program has significantly fewer optional pieces, you know, instead of having pick 0 to 2 or 0 to 1. And a lot of those pieces, again, are going to be centered around things that are giant weaknesses. When I give you fewer options to choose from, the idea here is that, like, because there are fewer optional pieces to pick from, I need to make sure that if I pick this piece, I really freaking need it. Like, that's how you should think about your non-mandatory work in this upcoming phase. And then outside of that, it's just making sure that the volume and all the movement specific stuff is appropriate for what you're going to be tested on when it comes time to your part of the competitive season. So there's not a ton of different nuance in terms of like, all right, they're doing these 7 lifts and we're doing those 7 lifts. It's like, no, we're doing the same program. We're just going to make sure that all the work that we're putting in to kind of set you up for a long-term success in the sport is very specific to what you need in your day and not just here's a bunch of general things that you might want to be good at. Like, it's very specific in terms of like, this is what you need to be doing.
And the cool thing about the teens and masters programs specifically is it's essentially 4 programs. You have the teens program, which at the top of the description is written for the 16, 17, and right below it, you're going to see what sort of modifications when necessary are needed for the 14 and 15. And then the master's categories are broken up into a very similar thing. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, you know, I'm in the, 60 to 64 or 60 to 65, whatever it is, age range, how am I following the same program as, a 35-year-old? That's not the case. That's built into the programming. So there are 4 separate, essentially, tracks built into those 2.
Only thing I'll add for Hatchet and the Masters folks. So Hatchet, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. Previously, we've had Hatchet folks do kind of a 2-a-day or a 2 days a week version of the volume back squat cycle. That's not the case this year. It's all 3 days, all three, or for the entire phase. So just making sure that if you've never done that before, you're again taking care of tissues, making sure you're warming up and cooling down appropriately, because that can be even just that one lifting session, but 3 times a week for 7 weeks, it will definitely add up if you're not used to it. And then for the masters folks, the only nuance, little difference is that we talked about the GPP lift, the touch and go, or the squat clean, or the clean as the GPP lift. For masters, that's going to alternate between snatching and cleaning, and is going to be predominantly power bait, like power versus squat. And that's just to keep the volume of squatting, because masters are, we got good feedback from masters on the 3 days a week squat program. There is a modification for the 55 plus category, so you're not doing the full volume squat cycle, but for the 35 to 54 folks, it is the 3 days a week. And I talked to Gabe about it, and he said he definitely beats people up, but the outcome was worth kind of the demand that we're asking.
Delicious cheeseburger gets spit out of the meat grinder, but it's still a meat grinder.
Oh, we're talking about lasagna. I'm confused.
Oh yeah, in lasagna mode. So
I gotta go lasagna time.
So I think other than that, the programs, like Sherb said, we're still pretty much on the same track. But come phase 4, when the season's dates start to matter a little bit more for the different groups, we'll start to see that diverge a little bit.
Final thoughts. Phase 3, November 21st, Misfit Athletics.
I was gonna touch on this at the beginning, and you hit on it a little bit. But I think it's kind of cool to see. We talked a little bit about previous phase 3s, and then looking at this one is that to probably 100% of those looking at it, it either doesn't look all that different from last year, or doesn't appear to be anything like spectacular in the sense that, like, wow, look at that weird movement. Look at this weird shit that we're focusing on. But there are, from our perspective, it's like I can see the small tweaks that have happened from in the previous years. We've got like the nuance of like the heavy day, where it's like, do you feel like shit today? Okay, here's your version. Do you feel like you're going to run through a brick wall? Okay, 95% plus lifts. We start to see more of the optional, like the farmer's holds, the sled work, all the stuff that we saw at are starting to see more of at kind of higher levels of competition. So I think we did a pretty good job of not swinging that pendulum too far in the other direction, just because Boz decided to make everybody face
without
a wall during handstand push-ups instead of, away. So, the good news is that it's still a GPP program designed to make you ready for anything. And the party tricks are cool and whatnot. But again, like we talk about it all the time, you gotta have that baseline level of fitness, which is really, really fucking wide, in order to get to a point where you can see what it's
wide
like
and
to do.
tall. It's the fitness level is so high to be worried about that.
Yeah.
You just touched on my final thoughts with the Masters a bit when you said take care of yourself. That needs to apply to literally everybody. This is a phase just before we get into the thick of the season, where if you had an injury at this time of the year because you aren't taking care of yourself, you're going to be fucking pissed, because you just spent 14 weeks prior to this phase really dialing things and getting things buttoned up. And now you're going into a phase where we're going to ask a lot of you from a squatting demand. That is going to be hard on the legs, hard on your midline, and hard on your central nervous system. And if you're not taking care of those things and wondering why, like all of a sudden around this time of year, every single year, you start to feel the aches and the pains and those things come back up, it's because you aren't spending enough time with the recovery element of the sport, which is such a tremendous part of what's going to allow you to perform this phase the way it's supposed to be performed. So if you're not someone that's currently doing that and you want a rude wake-up call, keep doing what you're doing and see what happens in phase 3. But if you listen to these podcasts and you're trying to get all you can from it, take this as a warning right now that if you aren't doing those things, you need to be doing those things so you can not only get the most adaptation, but stay injury-free and ready for when the season actually matters, which is, come up in phase 4 and the comp blocks that follow.
A sneaky demand kind of portion of this thing too is that gas bias. Like those typically too are the workouts that can really fuck you up, both physically and like from a CNS perspective if you're pushing really hard like we're asking to. So that's just another nod to making sure your recovery protocols are dialed in, which starts with your warm-up protocol, sleep, all that stuff that we always talk about.
Yeah. It's also a nod to MFT is written for someone who this is your life and this is what you do. And we put out the most ideal scenario. And if you need to dial it back a little bit or, lower the volume or change some things around because that's not currently where you're at, that is perfectly fine. That is creating the best version of this for yourself. But we have lofty goals and expectations that are very high for athletes that are trying to go to the CrossFit Games, that are trying to do very well at the CrossFit Games. Got some athletes who want to win the CrossFit Games one day. If that's the case, this program better be pretty fucking good top to bottom, and you better take really, really good care of yourself, basically, as a full-time job. I don't want to exclude you from this exercise. You can answer if you want, but I don't know that you'll be able to. Sure, what is your album of the year so far? 2022 album of the year?
Oh, it's the Danger Mouse and Black Thought album.
Oh,
that for sure, without question.
I thought I
love that album.
I thought I had him teed up.
I think it's called Darkest Part with Raekwon, just an ode to like 90s hip hop. I love that album. So it's very good. I also surprisingly like the new 21 Savage and Drake album, and I'm not a Drake fan or a 21 Savage
Ted,
fan.
turn the podcast off.
But
no, I'm just kidding.
Personally, I just thought that was a good album. I like the beats in there. So
I haven't heard it yet, so I can't pass judgment.
I like it.
Were you in your lotion pool when you were listening to that?
Of course I was.
All right, cool. Just making sure, seeing how soft you were with that. So I thought I teed this up. I did forget about that one, and I do know you are old school hip hop. I thought you were going to say It's Almost Dry. The point here,
also a good album.
Hunter, do you have any response to this before I keep going?
No, you were accurate.
Yeah.
Skrillex, remember we heard him the other day.
I don't want to take too long for this. This topic could be.
I'm excited.
We're gonna do it after dark. I can't decide between Kendrick and Pusha T for this, but it's like Kendrick's just my guy, like kind of a thing. So I don't know that I can say that it's better. But the reason how it's even possible for It's Almost Dry to be up for album of the year is there's no filler. There is no filler, top to bottom. There aren't that many tracks on the album. People get upset with that, but do you want 20 tracks and 11 of them suck?
The funny thing too is like the Rolling Stone just put out a thing about that album. They're like, how does someone who raps about like selling drugs and only selling drugs,
cocaine's Dr. Seuss,
so successful? It makes no sense. He's so like against the corporate, like front facing, like this is what you want to kind of listen to in corporate America and music, but he just stuck true to himself, and he made a bunch of really good albums, especially that one. How does this have anything to do with this podcast? There is no filler in phase 3. Sherb's wearing the shirt. It says everything on purpose. We go block by block. I actually meant to, before this podcast, multiply the rows by the columns to tell you guys how many cells we filled in here. It's not a small amount. Under quick?
Every single, he might, there might be like smoke and sparks if he figured out how many cells he had to look at, espally if he extended it out to
all
programs.
4 programs, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Does he want to know?
No, I don't.
No filler. We go block by block. We go into every single one. We look at every single thing that's in there. If there is one sort of errant thing, this is on this day, interferes with that day, we change it. We talk about it. We work through it. So I just think it's important to bring that up because we just talked about the like expansiveness of the program and what you can do with it. There is no one cell that is way more important than the other. We treat them all the same. We go through, we are dedicated to making sure that every single thing that gets put on there is going to move the needle for an athlete. So there's no filler on It's Almost Dry. There's no filler in phase 3. Hunter's going to go listen to that now.
What's your favorite album?
Honestly, he's probably heard it 7,000 times over at the gym already, so he would
100%.
recognize it. Yeah. Did we do it?
We did it.
Done.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. Black Friday, sharpentheaxeco.com. Use whatever code you want. Good luck getting your size. Get there It's this week. Get your stuff ordered. Don't wait. Do not wait. If you wait, you won't get the stuff. You'll be upset. You get mad at us again. sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word, whatever favorite athlete you have. Properfuel.co, 25% off site-wide, plus some extra deals on our single-serve packets. Properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit. And there might just, if you're a new Misfit Athletics subscriber, you just listen to this podcast, you're super into what we're talking about, there might just be some extra deals for you as well at misfitathletics.com for Black Friday. All right, see you next week.